work, so all your shenanigans were missed. Uh-oh. Is it? Am I seen? Okay.
Hello. Good morning. We're back. Another episode of the Art of Coaching podcast. We're live on live stream. We're live on mics. Oh gosh. Had some tech issues. Almost. They were resolved. We're all squared away and we're here. Josh, how are you today?
I'm good. Good morning.
Good morning.
To all. To all a good morning. That's a little Christmas.
Yeah, there you go.
A little Christmas. Is it Christmas time yet? Is the music going on in the
10 more months.
Okay.
Already. It's been 2 months since Christmas. We're in March. It's March 3rd today.
So really we're going to start prepping for Christmas in like 6 months.
We got to prep for half Christmas.
I do want to acknowledge the sponsors today. First is Tao. Thank you, Tao,
Thanks, Tal.
for sponsoring the wiping of my head.
Thanks, Tal. Appreciate it.
Two Brain Coaching, always sponsor the podcast. Ethos Water. It's actually not Ethos Water anymore. It's refilled with the RO, reverse osmosis water, courtesy of Strong Life Chiropractic in the gym. And then finally, thank you to Very Legit Lemonade for not sponsoring this podcast.
Killcliff. It would be so cool to get Killcliff as a sponsor.
Alright, turn that off. That's distracting.
It's off. I had to just make sure I could see questions coming through.
Alright, so it's another Wednesday, another edition of the Art of Coaching.
You said you want to talk about your workout.
Well, let's leave that for the first listener question.
Okay, I didn't even look at them, so
Yeah.
there we go.
Yeah. So we'll just jump right in. Upcoming events, the CrossFit Open starts next week, Fitness and Philanthropy. If you don't know the details, we will post a link to the blog post with details about that in the show notes. Can you do that?
I can do that.
In the live stream, I'm sure you can do that. You're pretty technologically savvy.
I'll do it right now.
So basically what we're trying to do is leverage the generosity of our community to kind of give back and do a philanthropic endeavor to supply those in need with clothing and shoes.
Clothing and shoes?
No, not shoes. I'm just kidding. Clothing and food.
Food?
Unless you want to bring me shoes, size 10.5.
Would you rather receive food or shoes?
Man, that's tough. That's tough. You can live without shoes. You can't really live without food. So, you know. Can you hit that fan behind you, actually? I'm a little...
you a little warm?
I haven't struggled to cool him down here, Mark. That workout was a beast. So you don't have to have it on level 3, but it'll probably cool me off quicker. So
Level 2?
that's fine. So anyways, the Open starts next week. The first workout is released, well, I'm assuming Thursday night, whatever.
We don't know.
And then
No one knows.
we will be doing it on Saturdays for the 3 weeks upcoming. So I think it's like the 13th. Is it the 13th? Yeah, 13th, 20th, and 27th, because it's 7 days after the previous one. So you just add 7.
Wow. Look at
See
that.
how I did that? Announcement number 2. Oh, there it is right there on the whiteboard. Okay. I'm pointing like you guys live stream can see, but it's literally right behind you. If you could turn your head, if you're watching the live stream, and look back at that whiteboard, you would see it.
Yeah.
But you can't do that.
Just turn around. Look at the whiteboard.
After that, we have the gymnastics clinic.
It's not on that date. It's at the 17th. That's the wrong date on that board.
Okay, so I need to change it in our notes. The 17th of April?
Yes.
Okay. 17th of April, Coach Emily, gymnastics extraordinaire. She's going to teach you how to be better at 2 movements on the rig. A pull-up movement and a toes-to-bar movement.
Boom.
Do it. Sign up. Oh, look, you posted. I was like, oh, Rob's in the chat. He posted a picture of himself. No, that's actually just a blog post that you shared.
Yeah.
Thank you.
Yes, sir.
I do have a hard out today by 11:30. Actually, Mandy's bringing the kids up here like 10 minutes before we're done, so
Ooh.
hopefully they won't crash the party.
Going on lunch?
No, she's bringing them here. She's going to lunch.
Oh.
I'm taking them back home, and then I've got to be on to my next appointment call at noontime.
What do the kids do while you are working, while you're on the call?
So they'll probably just be watching TV, playing video games.
Okay.
Parents of the year right here.
No, that's cool.
No,
man.
it's fine.
That's
Yeah,
the
no,
answer
they're
I was
really good.
expecting.
Yeah.
I was just wondering, that they don't like try to like go outside or like play around or something. I mean,
every now and again, you'll. So my office is right. I think you know this. My office is right over the garage.
Mm-hmm.
So when the garage opens, like you can feel the floor and you can kind of hear the humming noise. So I'll know if they go outside. Usually Jesse will go out there with Quinn. They'll either ride bikes in the driveway or play basketball. So.
Oh, okay. Cool.
Yeah. So that's what we got going on.
Yeah, that was pretty quick.
So we can get into. I know I had two things written down here that we wanted to talk about, and then you said you had another that Emily was talking to you about. So we can leave that as number 3, unless you wanna.
The issue with that third one is I gotta work on remembering it, but I know it's gonna come up in conversation.
Well, yeah, that's what I figured.
It had to do with autonomy. So if you've been listening to the last 10 episodes, it's something we've kind of been talking about a little bit more, and we talk about it a little bit with the block progressions. Like, I guarantee you, which is one of our questions today, we're going to cover it in these questions. So,
cool.
I guess, do you want to get started?
Yeah. So this isn't really so much a question per se that was directed right to us from one of our listeners or one of our members, but it is something that commonly comes up in conversation when we're talking to people. Is what have we learned so far through the last couple of blocks or week of training? And I was actually just thinking about this today after my workout, and I've actually got my results pulled up here, all my different intervals in Wodify. And so for the frame of reference that I want to talk about this from, it was several weeks ago. I actually coached on a Saturday, and we did this workout called constant variance, where you've got, I think we did 5 movements, and it's a set number of repetitions. You do 15 of these, 5 different things, and then you rest for what was the rest period in that? 3 minutes, 2 minutes?
2 or 3 minutes or something like that.
So yeah, you rest 2 or 3 minutes, and then you do it again, but the movements are now in different orders. You do it again, and the movements are again in different order. You do it again, so that's something that we refer to as constant variance. So seeing what the interplay, the interference is between different things. And we had some really good, healthy discussion afterwards where we had everybody's interval times written down, and you can see how for folks that maybe went out a little hot out of the gate at the beginning, their times got slower as they went on. So just for sake of argument, let's say that it was a 3 minute, a 3:12, a 3:39, a 3:52, a 4:08, or something like that. And so some of the conversation was, or excuse me, the last round is always I know I don't got to save anything for anything, so I'm going to push, and they get back down to a 3:30 or a 3:40. And I remember some of the conversation being, oh, well, if I had just pushed a little bit more in these 2 rounds, I could have gotten a better time overall, because they're looking at the overall time.
Yeah.
Or I paced it too much here, I did that there. And one of the things that I always make sure to explain to people is, look, if you would have actually pushed harder in the beginning rounds than you did, you probably would have crashed even harder in the later rounds.
Yeah. And
so one of the learnings that I had today was, in the 8-round version of the box jump, double under, shoulder to overhead workout that we've been doing. So this is week number 4. The first week we did every 4 minutes for 4 rounds, every 3 minutes for 5 rounds. Last week was 6 rounds per time. Today was 8 rounds per time. So my intervals went 127, 135, 148, 148, 152, 159, 209, 148. So this is actually what people are thinking, that, oh man, if I had just gone a little bit harder in the earlier rounds, I would have had a better overall time. And now, again, this is just speaking for me, but really this is just so that's an N equals 1, but I've seen it enough times with enough people to know, like I did, I pushed that, I did a 127, 135, and I really paid for it on the back end. Whereas if I had just casually maybe done a 145, a 145, I would have been potentially sustainable and gotten in at 14 minutes as opposed to 14:26.
Right, you would have saved 26 seconds by going slower.
going slower.
You would have gone faster by going slower.
Yeah.
As silly as that sounds.
Yeah, because what ends up happening is like I can get around the 127, the 135 for 4 rounds, but you can see after that 4th round I've got a 4-second drop, and then I've got an 11-second drop, and then I've got a 21-second drop from that 4th round, and so it becomes cumulative. Like you just can't make up that time anymore.
Yeah.
And so bringing it back to kind of the question or the observation is what have I learned is when I have a constraint on me that I'm going to do this work and then I'm going to have a rest period, I'm really, really good about pacing and keeping things consistent or getting faster, which is ultimately the goal on a long enough time frame.
Yeah.
Is being able to do just a little bit more work as you progress, as time goes on. So a little bit more work in the same amount of time as time goes on. So the reason that I'm sharing this is because it's shown me that I still have plenty of work to do to learn how to do that when a workout becomes more open-ended like it was today.
I think that's an idea. The idea of pacing really is an idea that we can preach and we can talk about on the podcast and we can stand in front of the whiteboard. And I mean, I think you've been telling people it for over 9 years now is, hey, don't go too fast in that first round, right? Like, and people are like, yep, I get it. Like, people totally understand the idea and the concept of pacing and what it is. But then that first round, you still get 80% of people who aren't getting faster with it. I wouldn't even say it's 80. I'd say 80 plus, 85 plus, 90 plus % of people that aren't getting faster as the rounds go on. And the only rounds difference that's getting faster is between like their 4th and their 5th, in a 5-rounder, or their second to last in their last round because they know like you said, they can empty the tank. I think a lot of it comes down to being aware of your body's capabilities and really what pacing feels like. And that's something, to tie it all back to the question, that's something that I've definitely realized, and it's kind of like what you were just saying about our block training, is although we might be doing the same thing every week, in reality, one, it's not. Like,
it's not actually.
You're progressing. Like, you might be doing the same movements, but, and again, this is kind of a silly, stupid phrase I've been saying to you lately. Like, I'm not just saying this because I'm supposed to, but like, the workouts do not feel like the same to me, genuinely. Like,
they're very different. They are. And
I think if you ask the majority of people, like, you wouldn't get one that would say, oh yeah, the E4 mon felt just like the E3 mon, or the 6th round for time felt just like the 8th round for time.
Right.
Like, they're markedly different. And so, although we might be doing the same thing every week, one, we're not. Two, this gives us an opportunity to find our capabilities. So if you are somebody that cares about, improving your ability to pace and improving your, say, cardiovascular endurance, like, this is the way to do it. Like, you don't get better at running by doing running intervals once every 3 years.
Right.
And I just say that because it's also something we've been doing in our block training. So you were going to say something, go on.
No, so it's interesting because before the workout started, I went back and looked at what I did for the 6-rounder in last week, and I think my finish time was like 9:52, so I did some quick math, and I was like, okay, well, if I slow things down a little bit, because I have to keep in mind I'm going to end up doing more work, and I want to be sustainable, and I was thinking, okay, well, if I did 145 rounds, I should be able to finish right about the 14-minute mark. And I was actually on pace right at the 4-round mark. But I also have done enough iterations of all kinds of different workouts to know that if you're only at the halfway mark in a workout that's going to take 10 plus minutes, and you're at the halfway mark at that halfway point, so like my goal was 14 minutes, so at 7 minutes I was finishing my 4th round.
Yeah.
I knew I was not going to make it because of the time that I had banked early with my 127, my 135, or whatever it was. So that's telling me that I had already used that up. And knowing that, it's like, man, I don't think that I'll be able to do another 4 1:45 rounds, 1 minute 45 second rounds in order to finish at that 14-minute mark. Does that make sense?
Yeah, and how did you gain that awareness as a fitness enthusiast? Like, as somebody that works out, the amount of time you've been doing it, how did you gain the awareness of, like, oh man, I'm not going to make it? Like, at that halfway point.
Well, I think about it in terms of just thousands and thousands and thousands of workouts that I've done.
Right.
And just being very aware of kind of what's going on and deliberately wanting to understand what just occurred. And, okay, if I know that this is something that I want to improve upon, how do I go about improving that? And so I kind of build a plan and work off of that. So that's why for this week I look back at last week to see what I did and knew that, okay, I'm going to do more work, so I need to slow my pace down.
Mm-hmm.
But then I'll also use that, so I'm already thinking ahead to next week, and my goal will be to probably hold 2-minute rounds. So I'll probably slow the pace of my box jumps down. I'll still go for double unders unbroken because that's a really good thing that I've been consistent with through all the iterations of these weeks so far. So that'll still be my goal. And then just slow the transitions down between things.
Yeah.
That's, I think, where a lot of people get caught in the early stages of a workout is the transitions are so quick. Their movement speed generally isn't going to change. The wall ball is going to take 2 seconds for guys, 1.5 seconds for girls, or something like that, right? So the speed of movement really isn't going to change a whole lot for people. So the quote-unquote working time remains the same. It's all the transitions in between. So if I can maybe slow the box jump down a little bit, slow the transitions down, hold 2-minute rounds, maybe that'll put me at 10 rounds for the 20-minute piece. It's 20 minutes next week, right?
Yeah.
20-minute AMRAP. So, so to your point, it's really, let's just say that I've averaged 5 exercise sessions a week for 50 weeks of the year. That's 250 over the course of, let's just say the past 10 years since the gym's been open. That's 2,500 workouts that I've been through, or sessions that I've been through, And I consider myself to be, I really hate to use this term because it's just become so, like, politicized or polarizing, but like a conscious, like, aware person when I'm doing something. I'm not going to use the W word because, man, you'll probably kill me. It's the opposite of when you're asleep.
Yeah. What about cerebral? Is that a good word?
Yeah, cerebral is a good word, and that's always, people that know me know that that's how I am. But just being just being very conscious of what I'm doing, why I'm doing it, what I've learned, and how to progress. And not progression for the sake of like, oh, I want to do more work, but I like to have some progress.
Yeah, and in the long run, like, does being able to do 6 rounds at a faster pace than your 8 rounds make you a better or more valuable person? No, absolutely not. It's just about coming and doing the work. But like you said, it's cool to like do the work and see the progress, and it just gives you, little sub points to every goal that you might have, to kind of come in. So my original question, you answered it, is like, you got 2,500 workouts under your belt. Like, that's how you gain the awareness.
Right.
And like, it's not something you just wake up with and have. Like, maybe some people that are really cardiovascularly gifted, but I would argue nobody can just do a workout and be like, yep, I know exactly how to pace this, and one you've never done before, unless you do some sort of like run through or some sort of variation of it beforehand. We were talking before getting on the podcast today, and you asked me if I had done today's workout yet, or you asked if I did it yesterday, and I was like, yeah. I did, it's the 8-rounder, but I was like, yeah, mine was heavily modified though, dealing with something with my shin that was acting up. I'm just being safe. It feels fine, but I'm being safe. And so it was similar workout, but different. And we were talking about progression and how we compare it to, like, we talked about the open coming up, and how before every open workout, like, everybody's like trying to go online, which don't do that. We talked about that in the show.
Yeah. Look at last week's.
Yeah. But we talked about like going online, trying to find the best strategy, or asking what the best strategy is, and then they come into the gym on Friday if they're doing it on Saturday, and they're going to do a run through. So if it's a 10-round workout, they're going to do 3 rounds of it or something like that, just to kind of get a feel for what the workout feels like. And it's like, that's exactly what we're doing.
Yeah.
Like, it's the exact same thing that we're doing in the class. We're just doing it over the course of 5 weeks. So, like, you're doing the same thing between Friday and Saturday, right?
Yeah.
Of course, there's different circumstances, but that's essentially what we're doing. Is we're coming up with this end workout in mind, and we're progressing us to that to make us more aware as exercisers, as fitness enthusiasts, because we know that 1, that's how you make progress. 2, it's how you don't stunt progress by staying injury-free, and 3, it's just how you stay safe. So I thought that was an interesting point to draw. But comparing my 2 workouts between the 6 rounds for time last week and the 8 rounds for time, my 6 rounds for time last week was 9:43 in the variation I did.
Mm-hmm.
I did the 8 rounds for time yesterday. I finished my 6th round at 9:49.
Wow.
So there was a 6-second difference, which if you do it by round, that was a 1-second difference
Per round. Holy moly. That could have just been the equipment was, an inch or 2 further apart from where it was the week before. I mean.
Which one it was, but there's also the 2 more rounds thrown in there, so I also had to maintain that pace. But also last week I did it in the evening. I think I've talked about this on the show before too. I prefer working out fasted. I feel a little bit better. I don't feel as heavy. My cardiovascular system actually operates a little bit better, which we could probably get into the science of that one day. But I feel way better in the morning. And so yesterday I did my workout in the morning versus last week it was the evening, because to be able to hold an almost identical pace and still do 2 more rounds, whereas last week I was gassed, I thought was pretty interesting. But only a 6-second.
So did you keep that pace for the next 2 rounds too?
Yeah.
Wow.
Yeah, so last week the average time per round came out to like 137.5 seconds, or 137.2 or 137.3 or whatever. So in my notes I just put like 137 to 138 a round, because I knew my first round was like 141. So my last round was way fast, it must have been. Versus this week it was like 137.75. So like I just put it was about 138 a round. So it was really the difference of like literally fractions of a second between the 2 workouts. So that was really neat.
Yeah, I don't know for me. I remember knowing that I needed to get to the 6 round mark about a minute after I did last week with the 6 rounds for time. And I think I did, because like I said, I think the 6 rounder for me was like 9:52, and I think I got there, I don't know, right about 10 and a half, maybe 11 minutes or something like that. So I knew I was still kind of close to where I needed to pace, but still being able to hold on for another 2 rounds I knew was going to be a stretch. And there was a couple times where I just kind of kneeled down, and it's 4 or 5 seconds here or there that really add up over time, right? Yeah. It's like, well, it's 14:26 versus 14 minutes flat across 8 rounds. That's 3 seconds difference that you slow down each round. So
huge.
Yeah, that adds up.
Really adds up, especially across 8. Like, oh yeah, the difference between my rounds was 136 or 139. Which, like, if you tell someone that, they're like, oh, that's pretty consistent.
Right.
But if you said I did the workout 24 seconds slower, you're like, man, like, that's 24 seconds.
Right.
Like, let's go silent on the show for 24 seconds, and people would probably be like, did they cut out?
Yeah.
Like, that's a long time.
I'm gonna check my volume.
Yeah, so, it's really neat. I'm also noticing, sorry, I'm stealing the show.
No, go for it.
I'm just talking about what we've noticed, like doing this block training. I've noticed this between the first block and then the second block, which we're finishing next week. Next week will be week 5. But instead of doing, a different high intensity workout every single day, right? Like the constant variance, high intensity that we did for so long, like we still have some variance in there. But doing these progressions is, like we said, where you're figuring out how to pace, you're figuring out how a certain workout's going to feel. But I'm also noticing that I'm able to sustain myself at a more elevated heart rate, which is good for the cardiovascular system,
Right.
than I typically would. So in a typical, like, constantly varied high intensity workout, or like a typical, like, quote, like CrossFit workout, like, we'll just say like thrusters and burpees. You're gonna get started and you're gonna go from under 100 BPM up to 150 or 160, and it's gonna feel like you're at 205, right? It's because it's a huge shock. And it's uncomfortable and it doesn't feel good, and that's why afterwards you're laying on your back afterwards wondering what just happened to you. You're like, oh my gosh, like that was highly intense. Versus think like a 20-minute AMRAP. Think progressing through a workout like we've done. I've seen, because we wear the whoop strap, which is pretty cool, is I'm elevating my heart rate gradually.
Yeah.
And then once I get to about where I'm hanging out, right at that threshold,
Yeah.
is I'm maintaining now a heart rate that's noticeably higher than the highest one I would get in a typical like high intensity
Right. I
like
follow you.
workout. So whereas if I'm doing thrusters and burpees, 3, 2, 1, go, I'm doing like a 2159 or whatever, like I'm gonna get to 150 or 160 and feel like I'm exploding. Versus yesterday and the day before, I was actually able to get up to 177 yesterday and 182 as a max the day before, and maintain like within 90% of that, like within 90 to 95% of that. And not that heart rate should be used to gauge the quality of your workout, but I'm a data geek and I like seeing that and thinking, okay, like it's pretty cool being able to still get a deep breath at 170 or 175 versus being at 160 or 165 and feeling like I'm dying.
Yeah, I mean, there is a lot to be said for how you use the data. So if you just, and we've talked about this at length, but it's worth mentioning again, if you just, unconsciously look at your heart rate monitor and say, oh man, this was an okay workout, I only got to 130, and then one day you touch 180 and it's like, oh man, this was killer, look at that, I got my heart rate to 180. But, the 180 was with running in the workout and the 130 was with rowing in the workout. Well, those are two totally different modalities.
Yeah.
So you have to, number one, take that into account. And number two, the way that you can actually use that to gauge your progress would be like something that we're doing, where we are progressing through a workout that is asking you to do more work over time, and you are seeing the sustainability of what we would call like your max aerobic power, MAP, maximal aerobic power, to stay sustained. So maybe week one you look back at the data and it's like, oh man, well I noticed every time I did that interval, I would get to 180, but then I would crash and I would hit something at like 150. And then as time has gone on with a workout that progresses, same movements, repetitions, so on and so forth, now I'm able to get up to 175 and hang out there the whole time. That is where data like that can actually reinforce that, oh, look, I actually am progressing, instead of just taking the blind number and saying, a workout that gets my heart rate to 180 for a split second is better than one that sustains at 130.
Yeah. I love this stuff. I love talking about this stuff.
We're nerds.
We're nerds. That's a lot on like the metcons behind our progressions and the block training we've been doing. Do you have anything to say, and if so, what about the weightlifting? And I know this is kind of off the top because this wasn't written.
Yeah. You mean like all the stuff that we've done, like the single leg RDLs or the kettlebell deadlifts or any of that stuff?
Yeah, so like the progressions we've seen through that, like what have you noticed in the last two blocks as we've progressed through weightlifting movements or skill pieces? Yeah,
so it's been very deliberately and intelligently designed to support, in certain cases, some other pieces that, like we've talked about this before, if you come in Monday, Wednesday, Friday, and not Tuesday, Thursday, we want some of the things that we do on Monday to support something that you might not be seeing on Tuesday or Thursday. So there's that, and I definitely can take note of that. So I get that. And we're also doing, some new things that we don't see a lot of, the single leg RDL being a big one, and I think that is probably the most underrated thing that people need to do way more of. It's not about like a weight thing, it's much more about control, using the glutes for stability, all this kind of stuff. You are certainly going to develop some strength through it, but it's actually going to be more through, neural connections that are built better, stronger, things like that. So there's that. Yeah, but overall, I feel like, I don't know if you remember this, but like my left shoulder has like always bugged me, like even when I do this, and like I've got, knock on wood, like no upper body pains or no shoulder issues, elbow issues, like all that is gone, So that to me speaks volumes about, things being balanced. We're doing deliberately a lot more unilateral balanced work where we're using single leg stuff, single arm stuff. We're also still doing double leg, double arm stuff. So having that stuff structured in a balanced way, I think is super, super valuable.
Yeah, I think there's a lot to be said about the weightlifting and the skill pieces in general, because we talk about movement patterns, upper body push, pull, squat, hinge, midline, and carry. And then we have unilateral, bilateral stuff that we're doing. You and I, we were talking about this, we don't cover a lot of like open chain or closed chain, but I know that like if I want, there's a difference between doing a ring rope for a horizontal pull and doing a pendlay rope like we're doing. So it's like there's things like that we take into account too. But what I love seeing is like, I said this out loud to the class yesterday, that like it's noticeable in the fourth week of doing our single leg RDLs. We'll use that as an example because that's such like it can be such a frustrating and complicated movement that like everybody is progressing in some way doing that.
Yeah.
And it might not feel like it, but you get better at doing that stupid single leg RDL or whatever you want to call it. You're going to get better at doing the things like deadlifts or just hinging over or being able to like pick something up off the ground. Like I demoed it for class one day and I was like bending over single leg to pick something up off the ground. And I was like, that's exactly what this is. Like that's the next movement. It's like being able to hinge over properly. And it's not like we're trying to make you better at picking stuff off the ground, but like we're just trying to find a movement pattern that's going to help balance you out. Like we want to balance your hips out, make sure you don't have back issues, and make sure you don't have hip or knee or ankle or leg issues from your imbalanced hips, because we all got them because we sit all the time. Like we all have some sort of hip imbalance. So it's cool seeing just the visual improvements in how people are doing it, but also just the comfort level from these weightlifting movements. Which is funny, the control and stability that a single leg RDL requires is very much an influencer of what we're doing in the next block, which I can't wait for people to roll out, which I told you. The focus is, because I can tell you guys, the focus is going to be about like tensile strength, or like being able to remain rigid and tense and control your movements really well. And we're going to do it with some lifts that I know people love. And so I think it's going to be really cool to draw comparisons between like how we want to intelligently design and program something, while giving like, okay, let's do it with these lifts and help and teach it this way, while still getting the unilateral, bilateral stuff in there. So I'm really looking forward to it and seeing what you guys think of it. Something I've noticed about the lunges and the RDLs that we've been doing is like lunges always crushing us, like no matter when they show up, because they show up once every 2 or 3 weeks in our programming before, right? And then that doesn't give you enough time to adapt. So when it's time to do them again, like you're fried. Yeah,
you just get like murdered every time. And if you have a 2-story house, it kills you again.
And then you spend like an extra 3 or 4 minutes just sitting wherever you're sitting, whether it's the couch, the toilet,
you don't want to get up.
You don't want to
sit down again.
But people are responding to those, like their bodies are responding to the high volume lunges really well, and like that doesn't mean we're not sore, but like I remember that first day, the 2x10 on each side. I remember I was saying to Gabriel, I was like, yeah man, I was like, when we were writing it, 2x10 on each side, it's not going to be that bad. I was like, it's only 2 sets plus some running afterwards. But I did the 3x12 on each side yesterday, so considerably more volume. Way less sore today than I was that first 2x10 day. And like that's adaptation. Like when people ask, how do I not get so sore from lunges? I've heard that before. Like, what can I do to not get sore from them? It's like you adapt. Like you
do more.
Yeah, you do them at a light weight. You do high volume, which is exactly what we've been doing. So I've noticed that with a ton of different movements as well.
So I'll share something with you. I was thinking about this when I left yesterday after all the running. I remember when you first told me about it. We were sitting in here and you said you had written, the kind of the progression up, and I think it was on a Friday, is the first day that we did them.
I was like, hear me out.
Yeah, and you're like, all right, listen, and you said that, and I was like, And now, like, objectively, as a professional, like, I see the value in it, I know it's going to be valuable, but there is always the thought in the back of your head, like, man, like, that sucks, like...
Just running?
Yeah, and it's not to say that, it's not going to be valuable, but I guess in my head where I was going is, am I going to be able to take some learnings from it, develop some progressions? I'm very interested in learning. So I wanted, it's very hard to notice that when there sometimes is like single modality things, because it's just one thing versus like something today, well, I can do something different on the box jump, I can do something different on the double under, I can do something different in my transition, on the push press, whatever. Whereas one thing, whether it's running or rowing or burpees, it's like, man, and then for me, for those that don't know, I'm not a huge fan of running, even though it's only 200 meters, so that's to my advantage. But as I was leaving yesterday, I thought to myself, I have really, really enjoyed those days.
Nice.
The running days.
Good.
Because those days, more than anything, I am learning far more and I'm seeing more progression. Not that I'm not seeing it elsewhere, but I am. There's a lot more thinking in my head that's going on in terms of, okay, well, I didn't expect that, and I didn't think that I could do that. So that, for me personally, has been the most rewarding day, that we've been doing.
Where and how have you seen progression there? Like, detail that a little bit.
So, the first couple of weeks, my first run was always just significantly slower than like my average after that. So I would get down into the low 40s or high 30s by the end in every single iteration. So yesterday when we went out for the 6 rounds with 90 seconds rest, I was like, okay, I'm gonna push this first one harder than I really want to, knowing that I'm gonna be okay. Even though there's less rest, I know that I've got the capacity to do that. Right, I'm capable of it. And yeah, sure enough, I was able to. I think I came in, that first one was maybe like 42, and then my slowest one was a 38 maybe. And so that was the smallest delta, the smallest difference between like my slowest and fastest for the weeks. The other weeks have been like, I've thrown out like a 50 and then a 36. And so 14 seconds, that's a massive, massive difference. So, that's probably been like the biggest one. And then knowing that, okay, 2 minutes, plenty of time to recover, 90 seconds, that was definitely significantly more challenging, but I was still able to do it.
Yeah.
So
it's cool because you can take that time, right? So you can take your 42, and you know that if you run, say you're doing a traditional workout, right, where it's run, you mentioned earlier, run, kettlebell swings, and like pull-ups or something. You know that if you do that first lap in 42, like, whoo, I gotta slow down.
Yeah, that's gonna be trouble.
Yeah. So what I'm liking about and what I'm noticing about this block style programming we've been doing is we can take all this data, like, okay, here's how I felt after 40 double unders. Here's how I felt after 10 box jumps. Here's how I felt after a 42-second 200. Like, and translate that into the other stuff we do.
Yeah.
So it's almost like you're helping yourself in future blocks or in other workouts by doing this workout. And I really think myself definitely and everybody else is becoming way more aware of like what they're doing. Like there is a level of autonomy that's being bred.
Yeah.
Bred, the proper term.
Yeah, for sure.
Amongst all of us by doing this, because there is a certain level of like, okay, like you're right. Like maybe what if the coach doesn't know what progression I'm on? Like I need to know where I'm at.
Right.
Like I need to know what I've done. I need to know what my modifications were. maybe not the extent of I need to know what my times were. Like I'd go as far as doing that because I like knowing that stuff. But like at least knowing what your workout is, so you can show up and have some level of autonomy with it, which is kind of like what Emily was asking about last night.
Did you remember what the question was?
We've kind of covered it. It's like, like, for example, like those running intervals that we've been doing in this block style training is that it's like, you see me writing on the whiteboard like it's a beautiful line in here.
Right.
And I'm like writing people's times and doing the math. It's like, okay, you're going at this time, you're going at this time. And my cutoff is about like 5 people that I can do that for.
Right.
There was one day, there was a class of like 7 at 5:30 a.m. and like 9 at 9 a.m. And that was the day I told you guys, I was like, I can't do this. Like, I'm like, I can take your times and tell you when you're going next, but I can't count you down. Like there is some level of responsibility that you need to have when you're doing this. Not in like a condescending way, like you need to be responsible for your time, but like just know when you're going.
Right.
Because you know I can't do all of it. I know it comes as a shock to a lot of you guys, but
Surprise, Marc, we thought you could.
Yeah, but no, I think it not only applies to that workout, but every single workout that we do is like, God forbid, like what if COVID restarted, right? And it was like, nope, you can't go to the gym anymore. It's like, and I was like, okay, you got to do it every 3 minutes on the minute. Or you got to do running intervals with 90 seconds or 120 seconds of rest.
Right.
Like, I'm not there to write your time on a whiteboard. How would you do it? Sort of thing. And we've kind of seen over the last couple of weeks as more and more people are in class and more people are doing different progressions that like they're taking matters into their own hands and they know when to go and they know when their 3-minute mark is and they know how to keep their times. And that's not even
been like a devious little plan, it feels like.
Yeah, right? And it's not even like, I mean, secretly maybe it's a little intended, right? But it's not like we're explicitly saying like, okay, like we're building you up so you can fly out of the nest on your own. Like people are just like, okay, yeah, like I can do it.
Right.
Which is awesome to see with this block style programming. So lots of stuff we've done. Sorry, go ahead.
No, I was gonna say I remember one of the running days. I don't know. I think it was last week actually. I might have remarked to you afterwards that I did notice a lot of that going on, where other members in class that day were counting down for others that were going ahead of them.
Yeah.
You know. So I can distinctly remember one time Natalie Nichols was counting down for, you know, 1 or 2 of the other people that were getting ready to go. You were writing notes, and she was like, okay, Josh, you've got 10 seconds, and counting them down. So just to see that to me was really, really cool, because that's when we first kind of broached this subject of autonomy, you know, back, you know, several months ago. It was like, oh, what do you mean? Like, what is that? And that's really like what it looks like. It doesn't mean that you're like off in the corner with your headphones ignoring everybody. It's like, hey, you know, I know what's going on and how to facilitate this, and I don't need somebody there to hold my hand every time.
Right.
You know, the coach can still guide, but really that was just kind of like, oh, for me in my head, especially as the owner, is like, all right, we've taken a step forward.
Yeah.
And seeing that, so that was really, really cool.
It's a thought that crossed my mind either 2 days ago or yesterday, but I was looking at a class, and we'll take today's class for example. Like everybody had been here at some point for the workout that we've done, right? At least once. So there was some level of familiarity with the workout that they were doing. I have no doubt that if I emailed everybody their workout, right? And I was like, here's your workout. Like if I emailed them their coaching, I was like, come into the gym whatever time you want and come knock it out. Like if every person came into the gym and did it, like they'd be able to look at it and be like, okay, I know how to do this, and they'd knock it out. Right. So it's really cool to see, and that's just branching off of what you said about counting the times down. It's like, okay, so you just showed me you know how to count the times down. You know how to keep time for someone else for someone else. For yourself, it's actually going to be a little bit easier, I would think. But I know that if I were like, all right, guys, here's the programming on the whiteboard. You're doing lunges and RDLs and then some running intervals. Like, take all the time you need. I'm going to go sit in the office and have a nap. Like, 1, I'd never do that. 2, I know that everybody would be able to complete it.
Right.
Like, And so it's cool to see that.
So Mandy and I were talking about this the other day. She's going through a Bible study with a group of girlfriends from church. And they're kind of getting into this section, and I'm probably going to butcher this passage, or I'll probably get the book of the Bible wrong. So if there's somebody that's really well versed in it, feel free to send an email to Marc at coachingforglory.com to complain. But I believe it's in the book of Hebrews, where there's a handful of people that are talking, and basically the idea is this: that if I am always spending time teaching you the very, very basics, we're never actually going to get into a deep relationship and talk about the things that, not to say that the basics don't matter, but the things that can continue to move your life forward in the direction that, in this case, it's the Bible, right? So in the direction that God has, for your life. But use it for fitness, use it for your career. Like, for instance, if you work a 9 to 5 and every day you come in or every meeting you have, it's like, all right, we're going to go over the same things. Like, you need to do this and you need to do that. Well, number one, you're probably being told that because you're not doing it. You haven't learned it to where you've developed some autonomy. Yeah. But number two, if you are doing that, you're never going to level up to the point where you feel like you're making progress. And it's not to say that, I have to chase doing more. What we're talking about specifically is like depth of relationship. So the way that I think about your, scenario that you laid out is, okay, everyone comes in to do whatever programming that they have to be done that's written by their coach that takes into account everything in their life, right? It's to support the life that they want to live. And you're not in here in the office. That's, what I'm talking about for people that are only listening. It's not like you're in here working on the computer, ignoring what's going on, or in here napping, which I have heard stories of gym owners who have done that, and surprisingly, they're not in business anymore. I don't know why. But what it does mean is that when you're out on the floor, you're not saying, all right, quad stretch, all right, leg swings, all right, guys, 10 seconds on the clock. It's, hey, how is, so-and-so doing? I know last time we talked that they were just moving into their dorm. How was that? Like, were you guys gone? And you're doing it for a couple of reasons. One, because you care, because that's part of the coach's job. Like, you're investing in the relationship. And number two, because that informs and influences everything that you're going to do going forward. But if I'm always telling you, knees out, chest up, feet flat, grab a barbell, grab this band, do this thing, set the clock, go, stop, I'm never going to actually get into the stuff that really can make an impact long-term on the life that you want to live.
Yeah. So that actually segues perfectly into our next question.
I did not plan that, but...
And if you did not hear what Josh just said, because you just clicked this chapter marker, then you got to go back and listen to like the last minute, because I'm setting the chapter marker right now. But that brings us to listener question number 2, is you kind of detailed that coach-client relationship. So like somebody comes in and they're working out and you're asking them, hey, how's your daughter doing? I heard she moved in her dorm. Like, how is college going? How's your son doing? How's your mom doing? All that stuff. Like, what makes... And we've talked about this more so in passing on the show, but what makes that coach-client relationship so special? What is so special about it? And how do coaches and clients create this relationship or make this relationship stronger or better?
Yeah, so what makes the coach and client relationship so special is it's one that deepens over time such that the coach leads the client to this place of being able to fish on their own. That's really what autonomy is. Is I'm not there always, casting the line, catching the fish, reeling it in, then I got to take it and grill it and cook it and all that stuff for you. It's for a little bit, we're coming along, you're going to do it alongside me, and then I'm going to hand it to you, and I'm going to help you through it. But eventually what it looks like, and this is to me is like the panacea or the utopic version of it, is I come in and I'm like, hey man, you want to go fishing today? Cool, let's go. And like we get in the car and we go fishing.
Yeah.
And we hang out, and you're fishing, I'm fishing, and we can then have a relationship that was built, with a foundation in me teaching you how to do this thing and maybe helping you do it for a while, but now we're doing it together, we're enjoying life, and we've got this, relationship that was forged through this, but now it's something that's so much deeper.
Yeah.
So I don't know if that directly answers it, but that's how I see it in my head.
Now I want some fish. Now I want to eat some fish.
There you go. So, I'm sorry, I don't know if you asked the second question, so if you didn't, go ahead and do it.
I did, but I'll repeat it.
Okay.
So how do coaches and clients create this relationship that is so special?
So this is the part that's hard for me, actually, because the market, right? What the market is selling, the market being the health and fitness industry, what the market is selling is six-pack abs, lean out, drop weight, decrease pain, increase energy, all these things.
And do it all in 30 to 45
minutes. Yeah, doing it at most it'll take you 6 weeks to get to your dream body, right? That's what the market is selling.
Sign me up.
Now, I have to, as a what maybe describe me as an optimist, a dreamer, something like that. I have to kind of park what is in my head sometimes and not speak as freely at times about that, because the reality is that people do want changes that they can see in themselves. It's not about, well, I want you to teach me to fish. I want to be able to learn how to do this thing on my own. So I sometimes have to be careful of that, and you guys, Steph, Marc, Jean, Emily, Margaret, Abigail, Ed, you guys all do a great job of the daily delivery. So Josh is way up here in the clouds, but you guys are down in the trenches kind of delivering, getting the clients to what they want, with the ultimate goal of the creation of that. However, back to the question, how do coaches and clients create this relationship, is there does need to be some dialogue, from the very first day, hey, wouldn't it be cool if one day you didn't need a fitness coach to tell you what to do for daily movement practice, daily nutrition practice, how to sleep, how much, and how to manage your stress. My personal belief and our belief in fitness is that on a long enough time frame, you should be able to take care of yourself.
Yeah.
That's kind of the vision, right? So there needs to be a little bit of dialogue of that on the front end, that okay, this is what we believe, but how do you create a relationship is you give space for it, and the way that you give space is time. So that's why we've made some big adjustments in the way that we do things here at the gym. Is it's not 15 minutes, come in, you're going to sign up and get going right away and get just tossed into the lion's den. It's 60 minutes, maybe more, of a conversation where we're going to figure out, where do you sit in life? Where do you want to go? What are the challenges that you have to get there? What have you done that's worked? What have you done that you've liked that has worked? What have you done that has worked that you haven't liked?
Yeah.
I know that sounds like a lot, but then we get into some deeper things, and I won't go into it all here, but you have to allow time, and you have to be open to having conversation with people. And so it's not enough for me to just say, show up for your workout, high five, log your score, and get out of here.
Right.
I want to meet with you like this, one-on-one, once a month, to check in with you. And I know people are like, yeah, but I just want to show up and do this thing. That's not the way to actually build a relationship. And that's the service that we want to provide. Because ultimately, why we want to do that is not because we just want to hang out with people. I mean, I do, and I genuinely love everybody that comes here. But I also know that relationship is the bridge that gets somebody from where they are to where they want to go. And it keeps them there and allows them to keep progressing. Because I can remove the relationship, and I can give you a templated program and a crash diet, and you can make some fabulous progress in a 1 month time frame. You might even hold on to that for 6 months or 12 months. But this is what I have gotten paid to do for so long. I'm telling you, it's not going to stick.
Yeah.
So.
We've talked about slow progress, and we've talked about sustainable progress, I think is a much better word than slow would be. And it's just funny, after having the conversations you and I have had over the last few months, and seeing what the rhetoric is in the fitness space right now, and what is being perpetuated, and what is being pushed. And it's like, listen, that's awesome. Like, if you can lose 20 pounds or 25 pounds over the next 3 or 4 months, that's awesome. Like, but we'll be here when 20 of it's back on.
Yeah.
And like, I don't mean to sound condescending or like a jerk saying that, because like you said, you can keep it off, right?
Yeah.
For 3 or 6 or 12 or 24 months even. But that type of progress is sustainable no matter who you are. I mean, if you're 600 or 800 pounds, like, yeah, okay, 25 pounds in 3 or 4 months, that's awesome. You can probably keep that off.
Right, right.
But it's just so interesting, if you saw on Instagram this week, Stephanie posted a reel that was like a cute little video where she pulled Ava up, and it said, not to make this too much about nutrition, but the caption was like, me trying to think of reasons why you should be eating 1,200 calories a day.
I did see that.
Right? And then Ava was out of the frame, and then right as like the beat dropped in the song, she held Ava up, and then the caption popped up and said, if you're like a baby or a kid.
Yeah.
That's a daily recommended intake for kids and toddlers is 1,200 calories. I don't even think for toddlers that still seems even too high, but like for kids it's 1,200 calories. And it's like, so why are things like, I don't want to call out things by name, but like Beachbody, things like that, like pushing these low-calorie, unsustainable diets?
Yeah, we've said it before, and I will continue to beat this drum, but unsustainable practices create unsustainable behaviors.
Yeah.
Whether that's in your movement, your fitness, like the way that you attack your workouts, your nutrition, your sleep habits, your stress management, you know, the way that you do work, the way that you manage your money.
Yeah.
Like, to me, and I was thinking about this as you said it, the stuff that I see in the market today is reminiscent of like the Bernie Madoff Ponzi schemes. It's like, yeah, that sounds great, man. Like, just, you know, give me your money, I'll take care of it, and we're gonna make so much money. Look at all these returns, and eventually, it's gonna blow up in your face.
Yeah.
You know. And part of the, I'm glad that I just thought about this as I said that. Part of the answer to your question, how do coaches and clients create this relationship? A big part of it is education.
Yeah.
You know, it's like educating people on, you know, the difference between sustainable and unsustainable. But the other piece is, you know, we have to be empathetic to the fact that when we have a conversation with somebody for an hour, whether it's a consultation the first time or a monthly check-in like you guys are doing, or they listen to a podcast 1 or 2 times, and they're like, yeah, man, that actually, man, that makes sense. I can get on board with that. Immediately after they leave, or they close the podcast or stop listening, they're bombarded with 600 other messages telling them the exact opposite.
Yeah.
And as a professional, like, you have to understand why the lens that they're viewing those things is colored from. It's because that's just what they're seeing.
Right.
That's just the reality, you know?
It's opened up this entirely new side of coaching on my end, which has also changed my personal behaviors, because for the longest time, I tell you, you know what, no, you need to be in here 3 times a week, you're going to need to sleep as much as you can every single night, like get your 8 hours, eat only whole foods, like don't drink any alcohol.
Yeah.
And I was having a really good conversation with a member a couple of weeks ago, and this was literally, like, as the coach, I said to them, and I might have said this to you, but if it's wrong, you can tell me on the podcast, but I was like this member and their spouse, like, They like going out on weekends. They like going to restaurants and trying different places. They like going to speakeasies and maybe having like a drink or two. And it's like, listen, like, I know that's what you like doing. Like, I don't want you to give that up.
Yeah.
Like, if that's keeping you mentally healthy and safe, like, I don't want you, and a coach, like a fitness coach, telling you not to give up alcohol.
Yeah.
It's like, if that's what you like doing, because I know that Sunday through, what's the last day before Saturday? Friday, Sunday through Saturday. Like, if you're good, you're good. Like, go enjoy. Like, be pretty good on Saturday, and then go enjoy yourself.
Right.
Because I don't want you to make any more sacrifices than you have to, because it's going to keep you mentally healthy. There are going to have to be some, like, if you want to reach the goals that you want to make. But like, don't give that up, because that's unsustainable, and you know you're never going to give it up completely. So fix something else over here, and that person has fixed it up and seen results from that. And all of that stemmed from not even a meeting. It was like a conversation, we were doing a workout together. Yeah. Like one of the long aerobic pieces, and we had a conversation. It was really good, and I loved the conversation, and I came out of it feeling like, one, my relationship with this, not only a client, but just this person, like, had improved. Which, if you know me, I love, like, I'm really weird about, like, friendship and relationships with people. By weird, I mean I like it.
These days it is weird, apparently.
Yeah, apparently. But I also felt like a much better coach, and I was like, you know what, I feel like that was the right thing that I said. And then them telling me a week or two later that they were seeing results, I was like, okay, like, and, like, maybe I can't even find that, I can't verbalize it, but, like, maybe something needs to change, like, overall.
So I think I'm going through some continuing education with this company called OPEX, and so every Tuesday we get on these calls with hundreds of coaches, or about 100 coaches around the world, and the very first week, and I know the guy who runs it very well, and the very first week we get on, and it was heavy. I mean, it was really heavy, and it's nothing that I haven't heard or seen before, but I know a lot of these coaches come in very green, haven't heard this kind of stuff before. But he has said multiple times every single call, but especially on that first call, he's like, look, before we get into this, I need you to know what you're going to learn today. Like, once you know it, you can't unknow it. You can't unknow it. And so when I've had conversations with people in here, and it has kind of been shocking, like the things that I've said, or like, well, what do you mean we're not going to do something like this, or we shouldn't be doing that? That's kind of the idea, is like, once you know these things, you can't unknow it, and you're not going to go back to doing things the way that you did before. So to your point on the coaching thing, can you imagine a fitness coach saying to somebody that, you know, goes out and enjoys drinks on the weekends with their spouse and has a great time socially? Can you imagine a fitness coach that says, great, keep it up, like, and go out and enjoy it? It's like, what? But when you really get into, this is why it's got to be individualized, when you get into building the relationship with somebody, and you know all the little things, you know, talking to them about, you know, work stresses, family stresses, driving, whatever it is, then you can make that statement that says, yeah, it's probably fine that you continue to do that, because you're working on some other things over here that are going to have more of an impact long term. Yeah. Because again, like, it's, once you know, you can't unknow.
What did he say?
I mean, it was just all kinds of things about the fitness market in general, and, you know, we were talking about, I mean, everything. Just the process of building relationship with people, chasing, you know, high intensity, like, athletic, sport geared type things. Yeah. And not to say that it's wrong, but it really boils down to the person, the intention, and all those things. And it really just, it brings back the importance of the one-to-one individual relationship that you have with somebody.
So he woke you up?
No. I think I shared this with you. The greatest thing that I am getting from this, the return on my investment, is I'm able to language better what is in my head. Because I see these things, floating around. I try to verbalize them to people. Bless Mandy's heart. She's a saint for dealing with some of the things that come out of my mouth, just like as I try to make sense of them. But this has actually given me great language, to be able to say these things,
Yeah.
Like, something as simple as the word autonomy is like, oh yeah, that makes sense. Yeah, but I've been trying to figure out how to say that with like a 5,000 word essay instead of being like, yeah, you mean you just want them to be autonomous? Yes.
Yeah.
That makes sense.
There we go.
Yeah.
That's really cool.
That's been the greatest gift for me.
Yeah.
So. But yeah, that's all I had for today. It was about how long is it? How long?
I got an hour and 6 minutes.
All right, well, right on schedule.
Cool. You got anything else?
That's it.
That's all I got. Guys, thank you to our live watchers. If anybody tuned in and listened live or
we have one commenter, Marc shared a post there.
A blog post written about that. Bringing your clothes and your food, not your
food.
shoes.
Yeah. Maybe you want to wear shoes when you bring the clothes and the food.
Yeah.
If you don't, I don't care. You can come barefoot.
Come in barefoot.
Yeah. But thank you for today. Thank you, Marc.
Thank you, Josh. Thank you, live listeners and watchers. Thank you to those that are listening after it's been posted. We appreciate and love each and every one of you. Josh will do the outro. Thank you very much. 5-star written review. Just do it. Bye.